Hi, and welcome to the Passion Project. I'm your host, Coach Richard Bacon. And as I like to introduce my guests and have them say a few words. But this guy's been with me so much that I know if you've watched any shows, you've probably seen him. He's my right-hand guy. This is Steve Smith, and we're going to break down the NCAA men's basketball brackets. We're going to talk a little bit about what happened in the first weekend of basketball and share some of our own personal thoughts and run through the bracket all the way to the finals. By the time this airs, this weekend's games would have already been played, so Sweet 16 will already be played, and we will have our predictions. And so when you watch, you can see how well we did or how bad we did or whatever the case may be. But at this time, Steve, welcome to the show, man.
Coach, it's great to be back. This is absolutely the best time of the year. My wife will tell you that I am glued to the set from the beginning to the end until One Shiny Moment's played, and I drop a tear almost every year because that's my song when Luther sang that song the first time. Mm-hmm. But this is Christmas for 3 straight weeks for guys like me and you.
Right. To the point that I had the opportunity to go out to the betting capital of the world, Las Vegas, and enjoy the first 4 days of the tournament. I was invited out by a friend named Larry Sanders some years ago when my mom was still alive, and I wanted to take her to Vegas because she's always used to run to the casinos in Louisiana or Mississippi. And I said, Mom, those are nice, but you need to see Vegas.
Absolutely.
And so one year we planned to go to Vegas, and it was during last week. And Larry Sanders was the one who helped me with that. And I enjoyed it, and I couldn't wait to get back. So I took my wife out this week, and I told her, I said, hey, you always talking about who's going to win. I said, come on, I'll give you $20, $30, bet on a game or whatever. Maybe you win some money.
Absolutely. Sometimes our wives have a better perspective on this than we do. They pick by uniform colors, mascots, cheerleaders, coaches' wives.
Mm-hmm.
You and I, we probably put a little too much into it.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it's a crapshoot.
I'll tell you what, I probably did the best on my bracket this year than I ever have, because in my household, with a daughter that grew up, all she knows is basketball, but chose to play volleyball. Mm-hmm. And a wife who's only known anything but basketball with me. And so it's mandatory that you fill out a bracket in my house. And I waited till the last minute. I was like, I don't feel like filling out no bracket this year. Can I just enjoy the game? No, you got to fill out a bracket. And I did pretty good. And as we get through the show, or as we work through the show, I will share some of my picks and how well I did. And I won a little money while I was in Vegas. Had a couple parlays that hit.
I'm glad you did. And speaking of brackets, so I was a little hesitant to share this with you, but this is my second year after running a bracket for about 15 years with a large group of guys and picking a bracket forever. This is my second year not to do a bracket at the beginning of the tournament. But for you, Coach, I went through and I did a Sweet 16 bracket so we can discuss those picks. Not having a bracket has made the tournament so much more enjoyable for me because I can pull for underdogs. Mm-hmm. So, it's been good.
Race,
but now my family, though, like yours, they're not having it. They still did their brackets and jumped in some groups. And my daughter Sydney, as a matter of fact, on day one was 15-1 on day one.
Okay.
So she picked some upsets. I don't know if she got lucky, but good job, Sid.
Right. Good. Well, all right, let's dive right on into this, Steve, real quick, and start this thing off. So since you didn't have a bracket, this question really doesn't apply to you, but to those of you who are out there watching and you had a bracket, is your bracket busted up? Because I found out on day 2 that after day 2 of the tournament, there was no brackets on the NCAA tournament website where people play bracketology that was still good.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And if you look at a team like Yale, nobody had Yale beating Auburn.
Exactly.
But a lot of people, the sexy pick was McNeese State to win their first-round matchup, and that didn't happen. Right. And so I think those two things busted a lot of brackets. Of course, there were others, mild upsets, but those were the two that really stuck out to me. James Madison over Wisconsin, and they dominated Wisconsin. And I don't think that was expected after Wisconsin did what they did in the Big Ten tournament. Of course, James Madison ran into the real Duke, in the next round, and they were on fire from the perimeter. That McCain kid is amazing. I think he's a freshman. Paints his fingernails kind of like Caleb Williams out of USC, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, he was a McDonald All-American, so I got a chance to meet him. And I wish I'd have known that you were going to bring him up. Maybe we can get this picture up by the time this airs, because I took a picture with him.
Oh, great.
And, he was a nice kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he paints his fingernails. And I heard, now don't quote me on this, that this was part of something that him and his girlfriend got into.
I think you're right, and he also has a huge following on TikTok.
I heard he's like the major.
Yeah, he's monetized that, and he's done a great job with his little brother, or maybe it's his older brother. I can't remember which, but the brother is actually a manager on Duke's basketball team.
Okay.
So they've been together for this journey, and we'll get to our picks here in a second, but I've got a couple of surprises in store with my Sweet 16 for the Dukes.
Okay, so let's start in the East. Let's take it region by region. Let's start in the East. So in the East, what we have 8 games in the East, right? So 8 games in the East, and I picked every game correct in the East, except I had Auburn over Yale.
Mm-hmm.
I lost out on Duquesne and BYU. I had chosen BYU. Duquesne won. And since I had picked Auburn to beat Yale, I lost again because I had Auburn picked to beat San Diego State.
Right.
So those are the only 2 games I missed in the West that day.
Got dinged twice. Well, that's not bad. So you were 14-2, or no? In that bracket, you were 6-2.
Right.
Yeah.
6-2.
It's a good day one.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Usually, when you have a good day 1, you have a horrible day 2.
Right.
But day 2, for me, if you move over to what region are we talking about now? Let's get over here to the South. I did good. I did real good in the South.
Did you have James Madison over Wisconsin?
The only game, the 2 games that I lost in the South was the James Madison game, and I also lost the Kentucky game. But it's sort of like you with. I'm watching the Kentucky game because 3 of those kids played on my McDonald's team.
Right.
And so I'm always pulling for them. Always pulling for them. That would be DJ Wagner, Justin Edwards, and AB, Aaron Bradshaw, that's his name.
Okay.
Bradshaw. So anyway, lost 2 games over there in the South with the Kentucky and the Wisconsin.
So you had NC State beating Texas Tech.
I did.
Okay.
I had lost 3. I take that back. I lost 3. I'm looking at it again. I lost on Florida because I didn't know the big guy was hurt.
Right. Gruesome injury in the SEC tournament.
I missed that. I don't know how I missed that. And when I picked Florida, they also, I didn't lose a lot of money, but I lost money because they were the last game on a 4-game parlay. They would have paid $200. I think it was a $20 bet. They paid $265. And they were the only team. They just couldn't pull it out.
No, and that was an 8-9 matchup, if I'm not mistaken, that was actually a 7-10.
Still
but
about the same. 17, 8, 9. They about the same.
And when you're missing,
key
component,
yes,
big
sir.
man in the middle, that's going to hurt that team. So. And Colorado had a nice run this year.
And see, I was torn between them. I picked Florida because I saw what they were doing in the SEC tournament. And then I was slightly pulling for Colorado because I had a kid on my McDonald's team that played for them. Sean Williams.
Yeah.
Sean is now projected to go as high as the 5th pick in the overall draft this year.
In this year's draft?
Yeah. He's a
one and done at Colorado.
He's 6'8", point guard, really. He can shoot it. He's athletic.
That's incredible.
Really had a really good freshman year.
I can't imagine the collection of talent that you were able to coach and witness on that night at the McDonald's game.
Man, I'm going to tell you. Speaking of McDonald's, and I was going to bring it up at some point, but glad you did. The McDonald's game is next Tuesday, which will be the day after this airs, in Houston again. And I'm going.
That's great.
It's that close. I'm going.
And one of your former colleagues, I say colleagues, coaching adversaries,
right,
is coaching in that game from the Metroplex, I believe.
Right, yeah. Tommy Brackle.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get him on the show after. I figured I was going to try to get him on before, but I'm going to bring him on after because he was nice enough to reach out to me and ask me about my experience and things that he should be aware of, and we talked a little bit about it. And he also is responsible for helping me get tickets down there on the floor.
He's a great ambassador for the game, and
Right.
He runs as close to a college preparatory program at North Crowley as you can run. He's always been good to me. I've been on the bad end of some losses against Coach Brackle, but he's always done it with class and dignity. So
Right.
wishing him well in this experience.
Man, I told him, I said, Coach, I don't know what else you've done, but McDonald's is first class in every aspect.
I'm glad you're getting a chance to go back down there.
I am too. I mean, when I first saw it, I thought it was a hoax or something. I'm like, how you going to stay in the same city twice? They said, run it back.
Run it back.
Run it back.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Don't fix it. Okay. All right. So we've done the East and we've done the South. Any other questions about the South? Any team stand out to you? Oh, we can't leave the South without talking about that Texas A&M Houston game last night.
It was unbelievable. I mean, glued to the set. I'm texting my Aggie buddies, and I'm a Longhorn, so
It's hard. It's kind of hard.
There's not a whole lot of love for the Aggies, but because I don't do a bracket, as much as I love Kelvin Sampson, as much as I love what Houston's done this year, I was pulling for the Aggies. I was pulling for Wade Taylor from Lancaster.
Right.
And, Buzz, I met Buzz about 30 years ago when I was a high school basketball coach, and he was just starting out at UTA. We were down at
met him around the same time I did.
Outlet stores in Hillsboro at the Reebok store, of all places. And he was just a normal guy, and so
still is.
Yeah, and I was really pulling for them, even though I love what Kelvin Sampson's doing and what he's done down at Houston. I couldn't help but pull for the underdog, and not doing a bracket allowed me to do that.
Tell you what, I watched the game neutral the whole time because, like you, I am very close to Buzz, and I am a Wade Taylor fan. I had his high school coach on the show last week, and I was torn, man. But when you kind of get personal with a guy, that might be the underlying factor. He recruited Nolan Dennis. Mm-hmm. He was at Indiana at the time, and he was recruiting Nolan, and he and I used to talk quite a bit. I've gone to some of his coaching clinics that he held in Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And then I was at a clinic, actually 2 years ago, me and my staff went to Houston for one of them championship coaches clinic, and he was one of the speakers.
Did y'all have to wear a helmet even though you were just watching practice? Because, it gets rough. It gets physical.
Well, it wasn't practice. He was at a coach's clinic.
Okay.
At the championship, the one that put out the videos and stuff.
Gotcha.
He was one of their guest speakers, and so we made sure we got a chance to hear him speak. So, I was kind of excited. I'm really excited for him. But I was torn, too, because I wanted Wade to play well, and he hadn't played well in the first half. But, boy, when you got a guy like him, you can't never count him out, man.
Oh, never.
Because that three he hit, he had to step back and shoot that three. Boy, that was huge. And I kept seeing him chisel away at the lead, chisel away. And Houston was missing. They was going 1 of 2 every time at the free throw line.
Right.
And I'm like, man, they're going to mess around and get in Wade Taylor strike in the area, and he going to get them.
Trading 1s and 3s. It's not
And
a
then
recipe.
Garcia,
Oh.
Hits the three of his life, right?
Unbelievable. And that will definitely.
1 second. Wait a minute. 1 second.
That's going to be in the final video, one shining moment, no doubt about it, when he falls to the ground after hitting that shot. When they hit that shot, I texted my Aggie buddy, and I said, it's over. I said, they've ran out of gas. A&M's going to win this game, and I couldn't be more wrong.
Plus Shed fouled
Jamal
out.
Shed, yeah, but before he did foul, he and Sharp, they put on a clinic the first 2 minutes of that overtime period.
Yeah, they did. All right, so now we've
got the West and the Midwest.
let's talk about the West and the Midwest and see what that looks like. So, in the West, I lost on the first day. I lost the Michigan State Mississippi State game because I picked Mississippi State to beat Michigan State, and I don't know why.
8-9, flip a coin.
Yeah, but Tom Izzo.
But don't pick against Tom Izzo in the first round.
Not in the first round. That dude finds a way to win, man. And I really didn't have a lot of knowledge on either one, so I picked Mississippi State. Just went with the underdog, and I also had Baylor, who won the first round, but I had them picked to beat Clemson, and they didn't beat Clemson in the second round.
Yeah, and I didn't, like I said, I didn't have a pick for that game, but I believed Baylor would not only beat Clemson, but I thought they had a chance to beat Arizona. and get to a chance to play North Carolina, and I had them bowing out just thinking about their guard play and the kid from McKinney. Has had such a phenomenal season.
Yeah, he was at McDonald's too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's from McKinney.
Jacoby Walters.
Yeah, but Jacoby went to Lynx Academy. He didn't play his senior year.
His senior year at McKinney.
Yeah, McKinney, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you when I found out about Jacoby, man. We at the McDonald All-American Fun Fest, a hoop fest thing that Sunday night where you have the dunk contest, the three-point contest, the knockout contest. He went to the finals in the knockout contest. He won the three-point shooting. I said, man, we going to be in trouble tomorrow if this kid get going.
He's a 5-tool player.
Man, he could really shoot that ball.
Yeah.
He could have helped McKinney, too, if he
And, the other reason that I was really pulling for Baylor in that game, Coach, earlier in the year, the Clemson coach went on the record saying that the Big 12 was overrated. Well.
Yeah, well, you can't pull for Clemson.
I couldn't pull for Clemson. I had to have Baylor win that game. But when you look at what's left in the Sweet 16, maybe he was right. Because the ACC is still sitting there with North Carolina, Duke, NC State. And I think the Big 12 has Houston and Iowa State left. And that's it. So he may have been prophetic on that, but I was still, I had my Big 12 hat on that night, and I was pulling for the Baylor Bears.
Well, I tell you what, though, you can't base how good a conference was on how they do in the NCAA tournament totally.
Right.
I mean, it is an indicator, but totally, I don't think you could do that because we got some teams. I mean, and when you get as many teams as we have more teams to lose.
True. That's true.
Just think about it. The teams that we got left, if they were the only ones who went,
right,
then maybe they would still be the only ones still playing, and then we'd be 100%.
And let's face it, Texas was a Max Asmus three-point shot away that he's made a million times from tying that game and probably going to overtime. And they were on such a roll momentum-wise, I think they would have beat Tennessee if they'd gotten to overtime. So Baylor and Texas could still be alive. The Big 12 had a phenomenal year.
Right.
But that being said, I am impressed with what the ACC has been able to do in this tournament. With Duke, Clemson, NC State, and North Carolina still alive. 25% of the Sweet 16 is ACC teams.
And the beauty of this tournament is you find teams that you wouldn't have found because of the way coverage is for the year. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't realize NC State could be as good as they are. The guy's a tank.
He's huge. The round mound DJ Burns.
That dude is huge.
And I'm not trying to slight anybody here, but he reminds me of the girl that plays for Iowa State. I don't know if you've had a chance to see it. But when you throw it inside to these two, what do? You've got to get secondary help and try to challenge up top because you're not going to be able to beat them down low. They've already got you beat.
Yeah.
If he can stay out of foul trouble, stay out of pick and roll situations with the Marquette team, then I think they've got a good chance to advance.
Yeah, well, that was my surprise. So we just covered the Midwest. Did we just do the Midwest?
Yep, Midwest. Or no, the West.
We did
and
the
so
West.
we
Yeah,
need the Midwest.
The Midwest now. Let's see who's got up here. So on the Midwest side, I only had one pick wrong. Speak of the devil, it was a Big 12 team.
Was it my team?
TCU.
You had TCU beating Utah State and then beating.
No, I had TCU beating Utah State.
Okay.
And losing in the second round.
Gotcha.
And so I picked all the rest of them correct.
Yeah.
In the Midwest.
Yeah, Utah State had a heck of a year. That was a competitive game until late.
I almost picked them.
Yeah.
We'll find out how Big 12 ready they are next year, right?
When you don't see these teams, but there's one team that we didn't talk about in the West.
Oh, we should talk about North Carolina.
No, we should have talked about Grand Canyon.
And we should have talked about Grand Canyon. Sure, right.
Your alma mater.
Yes, sir.
I mean, that school, to do what they've done, Coach, that's got to make you proud, excited for the future. Their fans were unbelievable. Maybe arguably the best fan base in America.
That's what Rick Pitino said.
GCU. Get to know them, the Lopes.
We started a thread between me and my teammates. And it was so funny, Steve, because you and I was texting each other too, right? Mm-hmm. So we texting each other, and one of them said, they used to call me Snake in college, right? So they say, Snake, can you go out there and guard, what's the guard for Alabama was his last name begins with an
It's
S.
Sears.
Sears. They said, man, we need you to go guard Sears.
So you played defense too?
Man, look at here.
Because I know you never saw a shot you didn't like.
Yeah, right. I left high school being a big-time scorer and got to college and actually met a guy named Dave Everett, man. He was an All-American point guard on our team, and he taught me how to use my quickness and speed to play defense. And I fell in love with it because I already was a decent defensive player because I could steal ball, read, anticipate passes, and I had a little athleticism so I could jump block a few shots.
Right.
And he taught me how to spin guys and how to use your elbows to control them. And, man, I fell in love. Yeah, flippers. Yeah, he had flippers going, man. And I fell in love with it. But, boy, Bill Price is his name. Bill Price out of Virginia. Martinsville, Virginia. My boy, we used to call him Chief.
Okay.
And Chief said, man, Snake, you need to be out there and shut that dude down. And I missed the first half of that game because we had to celebrate a niece's or cousin's birthday. Mm-hmm. And we listened to the second half up until maybe like the first 8 minutes or so. So we listened to it in the car. And then my wife had it on her phone so I could kind of peek over there every now and then, look at it. And then when I got home, I just thought, and what I put in the text thread was, sometimes coaches have to say to players things that they know their players don't want to hear. Mm-hmm. And I thought Foster tried to do a little too much. Even though he is worthy, you're not going to bring it up. You're not going to contest shots. You're not going to rebound the ball and have enough energy to have the ability to knock down threes. If you're doing all that, then you top 5 pick.
There's a reason there's 5 guys on the court.
There's a reason why.
Yeah. And
I don't think he did it out of spite to his teammates or anything like that. I think he felt like I gotta do it. But the rest of them sometimes have to grab. Hey man, look, when they double you, I'm open.
Who faces that same thing, maybe on a different level, but Caitlin Clark with Iowa.
Well, she passes the ball quite a bit. Her assist total is pretty high.
It's pretty high.
It's pretty high.
Watching the game with somebody who doesn't really know the game like we do, Shauna, my wife, she said she shoots it every time. And I said, well, there's a reason for that.
Right.
But she had a good point because some of those other kids can do some things. And late in that game, because she didn't have a very good fourth quarter.
Right. They'll defer
to
her.
They'll defer to her. But they
deservingly so.
Right. But I think she does try to do too much, thinking I've got to do this for my team. Right. And that's a fine line. That's a balance.
Yes, it is. But I'm proud of Grand Canyon. That was their first NCAA win. They've been to the tournament every year since they got off of probation, and not off of an NCAA violation probation, but when you declare from going from Division II to Division I, you have a period that you have to wait before you can start participating in the tournament. Mm-hmm. And their first year in the tournament, I think, was 3 years ago when they faced Iowa, who was like a number 2 seed. Mm-hmm. And then last year, first round opponent was Gonzaga. And so this year, when I saw
monkey off their back, I think.
So when I saw them playing somebody that wasn't a 1 or a 2, I say, man, we're gonna beat St. Mary's. Mm-hmm. Because I went to a game about a month ago when they came here to play UT Arlington. So I saw the possibilities of what they had, and I felt like they had a chance. And some of the big time guys in this business had them going to the Sweet 16. Had them beating Alabama and getting to the Sweet 16 and then losing to NC.
And I think they actually beat UTA in the conference tournament championship.
They beat them in the conference
to get to the big dance.
To get to the big dance. They had to win that game to get to because they had a really good record. I think they went into the tournament 29-3 or 4.
Yeah.
Which is a record that'll get you in. However, of those 4 losses, they had 2 really bad losses.
Like quad 3 losses.
Yeah, a loss to Tarleton.
Right.
At Tarleton.
Right.
And
no offense to the Texans.
No offense at all.
Billy Clyde's doing his thing down there. They'll be there at some point.
And he's one of my guys too. I love Billy Clyde.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. So Grand Canyon. But then North Carolina, man, was down big against Michigan State and came back and has been playing pretty good basketball. But I think the only thing on their resume right now that They didn't win the ACC tournament, which they probably should have. They lost to NC State. But they bounced back very quick from that.
They did.
Got over it quick.
I love what Hubert Davis is doing there. I think he was the perfect guy to replace Roy Williams.
Well, they had to get somebody that's from North Carolina.
Right.
That's one of those blue bread programs I'm going to tell you another one like that, and that's UConn.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Hurley was a good hire for him, too.
Right.
But before Hurley, everybody that was at UConn that followed Calhoun was UConn people.
Guy. And Hurley's got a guy on his staff that was at UConn with Calhoun when you and I were at TCU. He's still on the staff as an assistant. That kind of consistency and experience as an assistant coaching staff is huge.
Yeah, because, I went up and visited UConn because Jim Calhoun right now today is still my all-time favorite Division I college coach ever. I have never seen a guy who you would consider so high on the pedestal, so easy to talk to, so much wanted to be just like everybody else. I remember the first time I met him, and I was talking to his assistants out in Las Vegas, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're sitting there and we're talking, and I said, man, y'all ain't never introduced me to Coach. He said, well, he's standing right over there. Come on, let's go. Because that was back when coaches could kind of mingle.
Sure.
And I went over there, and they said, Coach, this is Richard Bacon. This is the guy we've been telling you about in Texas, blah, blah, blah. And he shook my hand. I said, Coach, do you mind if I just touched your ring? After he won his first NCAA championship.
Right.
I said, you mind if I just touch it? He took it off and handed it to me.
So put it on.
Put it on.
Try it on. What year was that?
That had to be early 2000s. We won it with the year that he won it with Rip Hamilton now.
Okay, so you had already won your own championship.
Yeah, I'd already won
Okay.
me. Yeah, high school level. I wanted to touch a college.
Sure, absolutely.
I wanted to see what that felt like. But, man, he was so nice. So the following year, he was recruiting a kid from Houston. He called me and said, Richard, this is Coach Calhoun. I want you to know I got you on speakerphone. I got Carl in here, and I got Dave. Those were his two assistants that I knew.
Mm-hmm.
He said, and we want to talk to you about a player. And I said, who? He said, you know this kid from Houston? And he called off his name, and I can't think of his name right now, but it wasn't Okafor.
Right.
So we got to talking about him. He said, well, do you think he can? I said, well, I've seen him play, Coach, blah, blah. I gave my little 2 cents. He ended up signing the kid. The following year, he came to town to visit Ike Diego, who played in Garland, and he was doing his in-home visit. And he called me up and he said, Coach Bacon, he said, man, what are you up to? I said, well, I'm just at school, just, in between classes or lunch or something. He said, well, what are you going to be doing like about 2 o'clock? I said, oh, getting ready for practice or whatever. He said, well, we just got to town. We got a in-home visit with Ike Diego over in Garland and wanted to know because I don't want to just sit around the hotel. If I could come by your school and hang out with you for a couple hours. I said, come on, Coach.
Come on.
Because to have the head coach at UConn on my campus, and I still got Nolan now. Nolan's there at this time. And he comes on campus, man. We go up into the office and we sit down and we just start chopping it up. And I asked him a question that I wanted to know that I had never asked a coach on his level. And I said, Coach, you're the head coach at UConn. You can get anybody in the country. What distinguishes this big guy over this big guy when everything looks the same?
Great question.
How? Because you can get either one.
Right.
How do you take this one over this one? He looked at me and said, Richard, there's always a point of separation. I don't care who the two people are. It's something that separates the two. It could be the parents. It could be you following instructions. It could be grades. It's always a point of separation. And I've always used that when I talk to my guys because I'm telling you this coming from one of the best to ever do it.
Right.
There's a point of separation. What's yours going to be? Is it going to be negative or positive?
That's right.
So what do you want? And so I can't remember which year it was, but his team played Houston. And this was like, because I was seeing him like every summer now. Now we talking, and he even said, "Hey, coach, take my home phone, because old guys like landlines, right?" He said, "Take my home phone number down, put it in your phone, and call me anytime you want to talk about anything."
That's great,
man. So
that's great. Yeah, I mean, those types of guys.
They do exist.
They do exist. And I had a chance with you. We were up in Alaska at the Great Alaskan Shootout. And I met Bobby Knight. And at the time, my dad was suffering from cancer, and he was a huge Bobby Knight fan. And he took the time to take a picture with me for my father and took the time to write a letter. We see their antics on the sidelines. You don't know the person until you get to know the person.
Right.
So that's great.
Man, one other guy, since you brought that up, and our dads were friends. When Calipari was at Memphis, they was in the conference with SMU. He was recruiting Nolan. So we went to the game. And that's when he had Derrick Rose.
Oh, yeah.
And so I took my dad to the game with me also. And, at SMU, the opponents, when they come off the floor, they have to come up the steps and then walk across. They have to rope it off so that the opposing team can go to the locker room.
Right.
We were standing right there when they came up through there. And Cal, I said, "Hey, Cal, how you doing?" I said, "Coach, I want you to meet my dad." He said, "Hey, Mr. Bacon, how are you?" And then he said, Come on, man, go back in the locker room with me." He took my dad into the locker room. Couldn't take me because it would have been a violation.
Right.
But he took my dad into the locker room, and my dad was blown away because he's like, he can't believe his son know guys of this caliber.
Right.
When because I used to go home and tell him, I met this coach, and he always said, "Don't get too excited about it because, they just being nice."
Right.
No, Dad, these are some quality guys. So that's why I have some love for Calipari.
Yeah.
Because he took the time to take my dad into his locker room and take pictures and all that kind of stuff, man. It was great.
That's incredible.
It's right. But my all-time favorite is Jim Calhoun. And I'm not ashamed to say it. There's a whole lot of other coaches out there I feel real good about. But that guy right there,
he's the guy.
Man, that's my guy.
We didn't talk about the Midwest, Coach. I don't think we did. Did we cover that?
No, we didn't cover the Midwest.
I mean, we did talk about your TCU pick. How was your first round in the Midwest besides the TCU Utah State game?
Got them all right.
Got them all right. 7-1.
Killed the Midwest,
okay.
Man. Killed the Midwest.
Okay, and then what about in the second round? So
if you go, let's do it like this. So if you go first and second round, so that we're talking about teams that make it to the regionals. In the East, the West, and the South, I got 3 out of the 4 in the Sweet 16s.
Okay.
And in the Midwest, 4 out of 4. So I'm 13 out of 16 in the Sweet 16.
Very good.
Yeah. The ones I missed on Auburn. I had Auburn in the Sweet 16. They lost. Baylor in the Sweet 16 in Florida. Everybody else, I picked it exactly.
So you didn't bite on McNeese State. You took Gonzaga to beat McNeese State and then Gonzaga to beat the winner of the Kansas-Samford game, which I'm assuming you had Kansas.
Yes.
That's impressive.
Yes.
4 for 4.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you're sitting there out of the Sweet. You've got 13 of the 16 right.
Right.
You got a good chance to win your bracket. Who do you have? Well, we'll get to that.
The brackets is just for the house, though. So I just get bragging rights for the house for a year.
Well, that's important, though.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Being a basketball guy.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, man. So we've gotten through the first round, probably even faster than they got through. First and second round. Now let's get to the Elite Eight games.
Okay.
See what we got here. So, who do you have? Let's go back to the East. So I have some loyalty to UConn because of Jim Calhoun, and I'll kind of pull for them. Don't know the new staff, but I do know UConn. And once again, I got a McDonald's All-American who played on my East team, Stephon Castle. And man, this is special. So this past summer, I get a call from this guy. He says, "I'm a chief scout for the New York Knicks. Please call me." I had no idea what it was about. So I called him. He said, "You coach Stephon Castle in the McDonald's All-American game, right? So tell us a little bit about the kid." And this goes along with what we're always telling kids about not burning bridges and how you conduct yourself around other people. Because you don't know who that reference might. You give people a list of references to call. They may have a list that they build themselves.
Of course, if they're doing their homework.
And so he calls me, and I call him back. And, man, we talked about 45 minutes. Because we knew a lot of people. We had some people in common. And so if he gets drafted by the Knicks, I'm going to say, wow. Because, I told him everything that I could tell him about him. I thought he was a underachiever in the game, but we knew he had talent. He's played real well this year for UConn, and he's a big part of what they do. Very unselfish, but he could go get buckets if he wanted to. But he's unselfish. He's a nice-sized kid, too.
Is he a one-and-done guy?
He might be. He might be.
That's a delicate balance to bring in the best talent, the McDonald's All-Americans, and win in the NCAA tournament.
Yes.
Because, like Seth Greenberg said, the recipe is to get old and stay old, but you've got to go get those guys when you can get them.
Yeah.
And Texas is bringing in a McDonald's All-American next year who started off at Lake Highlands, and I think he went up to Link
he's
as well.
He's going to
Trey,
Texas. Trey's going to Texas.
Yeah, Trey Johnson.
Trey beat me in the semifinals last year in state.
Right.
I've been knowing Trey since I've been knowing of Trey since he was a sophomore. I don't know him personally, but I know his dad personally. But
and how do you build that team with youth? You've got to have some experience behind them. And, I think UConn does a tremendous job of doing that, being able to go out and get McDonald's All-Americans and yet still play at a high level in the tournament.
Right. I think these kids need to understand now it's a little tougher with this portal action. I wish the NCAA would get a little bit better handle on the portal because it could be very disruptive. You shouldn't open the portal until the tournament is over.
Totally agree. I mean,
because now you have kids and coaches that are anxious. Then you get a guy like Bill Self, who probably didn't mean it the way he said it, but he did say it. He was thinking about next year. You can't say you're thinking about next year while you're still in this year.
Right.
But you kind of have to when you're wondering how many whispers you've heard that could be true about guys on your team that may be going to the portal.
And how does that affect their play?
And how does that affect your recruitment?
Moment.
How does that affect your recruitment?
Absolutely.
Because I'm not coming if he's here.
Right.
I missed out on a really good basketball player at TCU when we were there. He was being recruited really heavy. Well, he wasn't being recruited heavily by Georgia Tech, but at that time, Georgia Tech was putting out those point guards every year. I think it was Kenny Anderson, and then it was Stephon Marbury.
Right.
And he was right after them. He was the next one that they took, Kevin Morris.
Okay.
If you
I remember
Kevin,
that name.
Kevin Morris. So
yeah.
I'm saying, Kevin, you need to come to TCU, blah, blah. He came down, had a great visit. He was all in. And then Steph declares for the NBA, one and done. And so guess what happened? Georgia Tech turned up the heat. We just put Kenny out there. We just put Steph out there. And here you go.
Point guard you. That was Bobby Crimmins at the time, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Man, that's hard, man. That's hard.
So you got UConn advancing past San Diego State.
Yes.
Not easy.
Not easy.
Rematch of last year's championship game.
Yeah, rematch of last year. And both are a little different than they were last year. I think the differences in UConn last year and this year is greater than what San Diego's difference is.
Yeah.
And so, I think they can match up. And I don't know if the big kid at San Diego State is used to playing against that much size that UConn has.
No, you're right, because Klingon is a beast, and he is playing at a high level right now. He's playing himself into a lottery pit.
And he ain't the only one that's big.
Right. They're long.
They're long, man. So I got UConn advancing past San Diego State. Whoa.
What do you got in the...
Whoa, not San Diego. No, it's not San Diego State, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. San Diego State in the first game. And then I got them beating Iowa State.
And see, that's where we're different. I've got Illinois with what Terrence Shannon's doing right now.
And I like Coach Underwood.
Right. Because
he coached Leighton Hammonds that played for me
I
at
have
Oklahoma
them
State.
beating Iowa State. I love what Iowa State's done and T.J. Osselberger this year, but I've got Illinois advancing. And then what about you? So UConn, Iowa State, who do you have in that game?
UConn.
I've got UConn advancing as well to the Final Four.
Okay. All right, so let's move over to the South.
Okay. This is where I may throw you a curveball.
Okay, so you got Houston and Duke. Who you got?
This hurts me to say this, especially with you wearing your U of H shirt.
Yeah, just in support of Kelvin Sampson.
And I love Kelvin Sampson, and I love the Big 12, but I'm going with Duke, and here's why. I think with the way McCain's shooting right now, experience in the backcourt at the point guard spot to kind of offset what Shedd's doing, and then the length of Filipowski up top, down low, and his ability to make decisions quickly to find those guys on the perimeter. I just feel like Duke's in a good place right now, and Houston just came off of, arguably one of the toughest games in the history of the tournament with that overtime win against A&M. I had the luxury of making this pick after that game. Your pick was before that game. Right. But I do have Duke advancing over Houston, and it kind of pains me to say it.
Right. And just to be a little contradictory to what some of the pluses that you gave Duke, I don't know if they've ever seen a team rebound like Houston. I have never seen and it's the same formula every year.
Right.
That rebounding, and that's the reason why they got beat by Iowa State. Iowa State was hitting them boards, and A&M stayed in the game because they was hitting those boards too.
Right.
If you don't rebound with these guys, man,
it'll be over in a hurry.
It'll be over. And I don't know if Duke can do it, but we'll see. But I'll be pulling for U of H. As
gotcha.
You can see. All right, so I got Houston getting to the Final Four, and you got Duke getting to the Final Four.
Yeah, I've got NC State with one more in them, beating Marquette in the next round, and then NC State going down to Duke. And so I have Duke. So you've got Houston. So there's one. We both have UConn. I've got Duke. You've got Houston. What about down in the Midwest?
The Midwest first.
The Zach Edey, or we can go over to the West. Whatever you want to do.
Okay, so in the West, I got North Carolina getting to the finals.
I do too. Who do you have them beaten in the Elite Eight?
In the Elite Eight game, I have North Carolina. Well, I had Baylor, so that's not going to happen.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so I've got them beating Arizona. I've got Arizona over Clemson, North Carolina over Alabama, and then North Carolina making it to the Final Four.
And so I have, Baylor messed it up for me. But it wouldn't have mattered because I picked North Carolina, and I think they're dangerous right now. I think they're one of the dangerous teams out there. All right, let's get over to the South, to the Midwest. And in the Midwest, I have Purdue. I picked that completely correct. I got Purdue and Gonzaga, with Purdue beating Gonzaga.
Okay.
I had Creighton and Tennessee. I got Tennessee beating Creighton.
Okay. So we both had the same. We got the same four. I took Creighton over Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I think it's a good matchup for them. But I do have Purdue advancing, beating Creighton to get to the Final Four.
And I got Tennessee beating Purdue. I just think they're going to run out of gas.
Okay.
And Tennessee and Houston, and I picked Houston. And I really left these to the championship game because I got my all-time favorite coach's former school in UConn, and I got Kelvin Sampson's Houston with some Texas boys on the team, that I'll be pulling for.
Right.
And I think I made my decision this morning.
And that is?
I guess I'm pulling for Houston.
Let's go. Well, I would not be disappointed. Of course, I don't have Houston in the Final Four. So I've got Purdue beating Duke. I've got UConn beating North Carolina. And then I've got big Zach Edey cutting down the nets without a ladder. So I think this is the year, kind of like what Virginia did when they lost that first-round matchup, and they came back the following year and won the national championship. That's just my thought process, and I think it's difficult to repeat. So the pressure that UConn's going to have in the Final Four game and then in the championship game, I think would be just immense. And so my pick is Purdue to cut down the nets.
And see, I was thinking UConn before I fell back, and I think I was mad at Houston the way they lost to Iowa State.
Right.
by 30 in the championship game.
By 30.
In the championship game.
You would not expect that in a million years. They
Right.
could play that game 20 times. It's not going to happen.
No, right.
Just once.
And so I said, you know what? UConn is going to be that first team since Florida to do this. Because somebody got to do it.
Right.
Soon.
Right.
And they're there right now.
Yeah, they are.
I mean,
They're playing the
they're
best.
1 weekend away from being in the Final Four.
And of their 3 losses this year, in those 3 losses, the opponent shot 53% or better from the 3-point line. So that's the recipe to beat UConn. You've got to get them behind the 8 ball a little bit. You can't trade baskets with them. And
Right.
so of the teams that they've got to face, I don't know if San Diego State shoots the ball that well from the perimeter. If Iowa State or Illinois do, North Carolina does. And then, in the championship game, does a Houston or a Purdue or a Tennessee shoot the ball well enough to beat them? Probably not. UConn's probably going to win this thing. But
The reason why I want Houston to, another reason why I want Houston to win is because they're one of those schools that I thought should have had a Phi Slamma Jamma NCAA championship, and they didn't get it with them guys. And
Right.
here's the best that they've had opportunities since then. I was torn when they played Baylor in the semis a few years ago when Baylor won it, because I could go either way. So I'm not going to be mad if Houston doesn't win it all, but I'm going to be mad if Houston or UConn don't win it.
Right.
One of the two needs to win it.
understood. And even though I made these picks, I'm still pulling for Houston to get there and win it all.
Right. And that's the bad part about it. Sometimes we choose these things with our hearts rather than with our knowledge, a little bit of both.
My Longhorns have disappointed me for years. I mean, I've been picking them to win national championships for the last 20 years, and they've been to one Final Four with Rick Barnes, and that was it.
Just one?
Just one. Only been to the Final Four once in the last 25, 30 years. Now, they may have before with Abe Lemons and Slater Martin and those guys.
Since you know that, then you know who the players was. Is that T.J. Ford now?
That was T.J. Ford.
And Boddicker?
I believe Boddicker, from
Brian,
Duncanville.
Brian. Yeah,
right?
Brian, yeah. I know Brian.
Yeah.
Brian Boddicker and
And Rodney Terry was an assistant on that staff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rodney's been there forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rick Barnes is another guy I like a lot. He was recruiting. When you have a kid like Nolan Dennis, and you got all the big-time coaches coming in to watch your practices and all that, you kind of get to know him. And Rick was one of those guys who recruited Nolan really hard. And so I got to see him a lot. And I remember, how we used to go on the coaches' retreats.
Mm-hmm.
We go get ourselves rejuvenated for the season and all that stuff. And we went down to Texas one year, and I walked into the practice and told Coach, "Hey, Coach, we're here. Where can we sit?" He said, "Just sit anywhere or whatever." He said, "One of your college teammates is going to be here in a minute." I said, "Coach, you know where I played basketball?" He said, "Yeah, you went to Grand Canyon." I had never told him this. We had never talked about it, right? So I say, "Who?" He said, "Dave Babcock." I say, "Babcock will be here?" He said, "Yeah, he'll be here in a minute." I said, "Okay." And Dave and I played together. Dave was a freshman when I was a junior on our national championship team. Mm-hmm. And he's from that Babcock basketball family of NBA executives. So his older brother was the general manager of the Atlanta Hawks when we were in college, and then he went to Denver and was Denver. And so the other one, he has another brother named Pete. Pete was a scout for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I didn't know, I had never met Pete. He played at Grand Canyon, too, and I'd never met him. So I go to the Timberwolves game to see Kevin Garnett play.
Right.
And I'm sitting there, and I took Colin Dennis and Chip to the game because Chip's favorite player was Kevin Garnett.
Okay.
So we go to the game, and I'm sitting there, and this guy keeps bumping my chair. Turn around, I look at him. Like, "Man, what are you doing?" He said, "How you doing, Coach?" I said, "I'm doing good." He said, "You don't know me, but you probably know my brother." And he gave me his card. It said, "General Scout from Minnesota Timberwolves, Pete Babcock." I said, "Pete Babcock? Oh, yeah, Dave."
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so we got to talking, and what I wanted to do, you know how you always want to be, like you do for your kids, same thing you do for your players. Chip wanted an autographed picture of Kevin Garnett. because when I was at Richland, I don't know if you remember, I met the guy who's the coach at Utah and got him to send me an autographed picture of Keith Van Horn.
Okay.
I mean, we played against Utah in the WAC championship.
Yes.
And so get to Richland, had a kid that was in love with Keith Van Horn. He sent me an autographed picture of Keith Van Horn, and guess who he was posting up against to make the picture even better?
Who?
Tim Duncan.
Wow.
So not only did I get Keith Van Horn, I got Tim Duncan's picture.
Wake Forest.
Wake Forest.
Yeah. Wow.
And I'm like, man. So when I gave that kid that picture, man, he went crazy because he got Keith Van Horn and Tim Duncan.
That's a great story, Coach.
Yeah, man. I got a lot of stories, man. We could be on this podcast for 2 hours. But anyway, I enjoyed it, man. What you?
Oh, enjoyed it.
Yes, sir.
Now, we didn't get a chance to cover the women's tournament.
No, the women's tournament is gonna have to
You
wait
got a
for
pick?
another day. Oh, overall? Oh, South Carolina for sure.
Impossible to pick against them, right?
Right, impossible.
Yeah.
Cause Lightning ain't gonna strike in the same place twice.
No, I agree. I do have South Carolina playing in the championship game against my Lady Longhorns, and I
Okay.
got Texas cutting down the nets, just picking with my heart, but my head
Right.
says South Carolina.
And you know what? I wouldn't be mad if Texas won because it's a DeSoto girl on that team.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have a tie. with
Okay.
that one too. She was at DeSoto when I was at DeSoto Muhammad.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Muhammad.
I like Muhammad's game. Of course, Madison Booker is just a freshman phenom. She's the female version of Kevin Durant, which is her favorite player.
Mm-hmm.
And he came to see her the other day. So I know we weren't going to talk about the ladies' tournament, but
Yeah, but no.
But we both
Yeah,
think
can
South
mention
Carolina.
it. I mean, it is
Yeah.
basketball.
It's basketball.
Basketball. But we don't have enough time in this show to get this done. But Steve, I really appreciate you, man, being able to come and sit down
Thanks
with
for
me.
having
and
me, Coach.
Chop it up, man. I love you like a brother. Felt like it ever since we met. You know, and our dads just kicked it off the same way. and
Absolutely. 30-plus years.
30 plus years, man. Must be something.
We're like
man.
fine wine.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed us talking a little bit about basketball, college hoops. You may agree, you may disagree. Eventually, the basketball game will decide who's going to win, not us. And I'm thinking about, I don't know, maybe I can ruffle a few feathers and bring up the GOAT question on a podcast, because I watched something today that had me turning flips laughing about the debate between who's the GOAT, Michael Jordan or LeBron James. You know, you got the people who were born when Michael was doing his things with Jordan, and you got the kids who didn't see Michael but only clips rolling with LeBron.
That's right.
So I might have to do that. That might be good for ratings.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe and view. Please view. Get those views up. All right. This is your host, Coach Richard Bacon, along with my best friend, Steve Smith. There's a whole lot of ways to describe him. That's why I was hesitant. Best friend, golfing buddy, basketball friend, just lifelong guy. Hope you enjoyed the Passion Project. See you next time.